nifty Thursday nighter at Tampa Bay. Like I think John mentioned Tampa Bay. Which, by the way, before we even start, we're gonna do this every week in case anybody's new. We're gonna do this the whole season. Pick us against the spread. We do spread because it's a little bit tougher than just picking the winner. Because after a certain point of the season, kind of know who's good, who's not. Spread adds a whole another aspect.
Pitch. Can you explain it for people who don't know? Because I know some of the friends that I have that watch don't actually know what picks against the spread is.
Okay, so basically, there's always a favorite and underdog. So, for example, take the Dallas game. So Dallas is the underdog here, and the spread's 8.5 points, which means technically again to beat the if you pick the Bucs or you place money against on the Bucs to win against the spread, the Bucs have to win by, in this case, it would be 9 points or more because you can't have half a point in the NFL. But if the Bucs win, but it's only by 8 or less, technically, spread wise, Dallas would win. So
Right.
it makes things tough, as John or mainly John found out last year. A lot of backdoor covers, a lot of garbage. It makes it tough because then you could be up 10. The team you picked is up 10, and then the other team scores a garbage time field goal, and then you're like, well, darn. Or they missed an extra point I think that happened last year, right? Or something like that. So just makes things more interesting. I wouldn't say there's much skill involved. 'Cause once again, it's pretty tough. So, anyways, so the favorite here is Tampa Bay, like I mentioned, at Tampa. Like John mentioned, they're getting their rings. Huge night, Thursday night for them in that city. They are favored by 8.5 against John's Dallas Cowboys, who are visiting. Zach Martin's status isn't looking very good, but Mike McCarthy is leaving the door open. Regardless, I think I already know your answer, but I'm throwing it to you, John. Who do you have for this game? Who do you think is going to win, and who do you got for the spread?
I mean, there was a bit there where I felt like, okay, maybe we could have a chance winning this game, but then throughout preseason, the Dak shoulder stuff started coming up, and I know that he's fully cleared and healthy and ready to go, but still, like it just limited his chance to like get fully back into form. CD Lamb and a few other guys have been on the COVID list for like a week and a half. Now they're finally back off. Once again, just missing practice, missing valuable reps. Now Zach Martin. I guess Mike McCarthy's leaving the door open. Everything I've read is saying he's
Yeah.
pretty much out. I don't expect him to play. I don't think Vegas expects him to play because I believe the line before this was 7 and it moved the whole point and a half because of Zach Martin. And so yeah, I'm taking Tampa Bay. I know 8.5 is a lot. Last year, 8.5 when I first started felt like, oh, obviously they'd win, but yeah, I could easily see this game being like 34-24, something like that, to where Tampa wins by 10, maybe 14, 2-possession game. And a large part of that is just because they're a more well-rounded team. The Cowboys are going to rely on their offense. And even with their offense, there's just still questions with Dak coming off the multiple injuries, Martin not being there, how the tackles are going to look because they're also coming off injury. There's just a lot of questions piling up. And then also, how effective can Zeke and the run game be against this loaded front seven? So, I think Tampa's just they're the safe pick here. I'll be happy if I'm wrong, but I don't think, like I said, I don't think Tom Brady's going to take a day off, and there's not going to be a Super Bowl hangover, if you will.
Yeah, I'm right in the same boat with you. I'll keep this one simple since we both agree. Similar worries as you. I mean, this is a Buck squad that's, they're going to be getting the rings, a lot of emotions too. And yeah, I mean, Dallas, we don't know what to expect out of the defense, except that, they will be running that Seattle cover 3 scheme, which, Tom Brady is very accustomed to seeing and probably knows how to attack at this point. And then, like John mentioned on the flip side, question marks along the offensive line against this is just not a good week for you. Just a real tough draw for Dallas. Like, week 1, like you wouldn't mind this maybe week 4 or 5 when Stack's gotten his feet wet and maybe, your tackles have gotten, once all your tackles have also gotten your feet wet and, they've been, back in action with the live bullets and such. But week 1, man, it's an uphill battle, and I expect Tampa to, make a statement with this win. And I don't think they even played last year with fans, I believe. I'm pretty sure. So this, that stadium's gonna be rocking. So, yeah, going with Tampa Bay for that one.
Also, real quick, the Cowboys, they don't ever play starters in preseason. So unlike Tampa, this is their sort of full like in-game run with contact and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of these guys, like I said, there's going to be some rust that I think we're going to see early because a lot of teams, they play starters because they just want to get that out of the way. Tampa did that. They played Tom Brady through most of the preseason games. Dallas doesn't do it.
Yeah. So, all right, go on to the next one. So that was a Thursday night game. Now going to the first noon game on Sunday. We got the Atlanta Falcons at Atlanta. They are favored by 3.5 against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know why I said Philadelphia that weirdly. John, who do you have here? You going with it's Battle of the Birds. So you're going with the Eagles. You're going with the Falcons.
This one was a weird game because
it was actually a tough game to pick. Like, an oddly tough one.
These teams are like two of the ones that we had sort of in the conversation for maybe being the worst. Like, I don't think either of us picked them, but they're like in that conversation.
And in NBA terms, they'd be in the lottery for sure. We would consider these teams lottery teams.
Both favorites to finish last in their division. So when you have a matchup like that early, to me, it feels like a toss-up. And so I think I'm going with the safer option. And to me, that is Philadelphia to cover. I just think the Falcons at 3.5. I just worry about their defense. I know that Jalen Hurts, he didn't have an amazing completion percentage last year. I think it was in the low 50s, but he's an effective runner. He can make plays with his arm. And so I would look for Philly to be able to keep up with them offensively. And I think that between the two defenses, Philly by far has the better one, although it's not amazing. They do have some key guys like Darius Slay, like Fletcher Cox, who can be difference makers in the game. So I don't know who wins, but I think Philadelphia at least covers. Wouldn't be shocked if they did win, though, just because, Atlanta, there's a lot of changes. New head coach, Julio's gone, Kyle Pitts is new running backs, just new everything for the most part.
Yeah, it's tough. I went to Atlanta. I think they'll cover and win. It's just like I just went with Matt Ryan's still there. He's a known commodity. I am unsure about the run game with Mike Davis, but still have Calvin Ridley. Even if Kyle Pitts doesn't get off to the great start, I think many are expecting, which I don't believe he will because it takes tight ends a little bit. Regardless, still have Hayden Hurst, who actually had a pretty solid year last year. And then on the flip side, I just feel like Atlanta's biggest weakness is their pass defense, at least as was last year. But I don't think they have to worry about that as much against the Eagles, just because, is Devonta Smith expected to play? I think he is, right?
I think he is, but he's questionable, you know?
So, and then also, I've mentioned this before, just not fully confident in Jalen Hurts' two things, and Jalen Hurts' ability as an NFL thrower, and just I'm not sure what we're going to see out of this Eagles offense in terms of the passing wise, because they weren't too creative last year. I know it's a new system, but it doesn't help when you don't have. Jalen Reagor didn't have a great year last year, so I wouldn't say he's a known commodity. Really, the only reliable pass catcher might be Dallas Goedert, and I would say second would be Zach Ertz, who we don't know how much time he's going to get playing either. So I think Atlanta's going to be ready to stop the read option and kind of plays, and they're built like a fast team anyway with Deion Jones. I'm forgetting that the other linebacker. That popped last year. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like 41.
Awulakan or something like that.
He
I think
it's. I
think that's wrong, but it's something similar to that.
Yeah, I'm sure that one Atlanta fan that that was talking that was in our comments on the Atlanta episode will pop up. But I'm going with Atlanta here, but would not shock me if Philly covers or wins. This is one of those. This is why the spread's tough, because if it wasn't spread, I would be pretty confident, more confident in Atlanta. But that is my pick, is Atlanta. So Battle of the Birds, that's who we have there. All right, going on to the next game. I think this is the best game of the noon slot. One I'll probably be watching, which reminds me, I got to text my friend that's a Pittsburgh fan to come over and watch that one. At Buffalo Bills, my boy Josh Allen. They're favored by 6.5, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. So John, who you got here? These two teams, I think they both won their division last year. Two good playoff teams, but both kind of be trending in opposite-ish directions since, the end of last season. Pittsburgh, I think everyone's kind of down on them. And Buffalo, I think we all have high expectations. So who do you have for this one and why?
If you've watched our predictions episode, you know that I'm picking Josh Allen to win MVP. I'm picking the Bills to be the third team in the AFC conference standings at the end of the year. And so I think that's going to start early. I think that's going to start here in Pittsburgh. I'm taking Buffalo. Uh, I can't remember the score when they played last year, but the Bills won, right?
Yeah, Bills won. I'll look it
Yeah,
up real quick.
I don't think it was that tough of a game. Anyway, yeah, I just believe in the Buffalo Bills. I think that their defensive line, although they have some unproven guys like
It
the
was
the rookies they selected,
26-15.
yeah. So I mean that's a double digit win right there. Um, and the fact that they held the Steelers last year to 15 points, I think, doesn't bode well for Pittsburgh. Although they did add Najee Harris and guys like Chase Claypool's getting another year. Their offensive line took a massive step back. I think Buffalo's defense could be much improved this year. So, yeah, I'm taking Buffalo. I think a touchdown is pretty easy.
Yeah, so I'm going with you as well. I do believe Pittsburgh's offensive line could be solid, but once again, this is a new identity that they're going back to, and and Buffalo knows their stuff too. I mean, they showed last year, but that's a big question mark. And then also defensively, I mean, Mike Tomlin says he expects TJ Watt to be out there week one. That's a whole question mark in itself because there's been reports that they are not close. There's been reports that they are close. I don't know. TJ's been holding in, so if he does play, regardless if he does play, I don't think he got really any preseason time. So, like we mentioned with Dallas, I don't care how great you are, it's gonna take, it might take a game, might take a half, or even a couple games. We've seen some examples. I think a couple of years ago when Zeke held out, took him a couple games to get back in, into Zeke form. So, and then also no Bud Dupree on the other end too. I believe that Bud Dupree last time that may have just lost him. Regardless, Buffalo's going to spread the ball out, and they're going to want to pass. And like I mentioned for sure in our preview about Pittsburgh, worried about their secondary. And if they do like to send the blitzes they do, it's Josh Allen. Like I think he's going to be able to evade most of those and make plays. So really, it's just a bad matchup. I feel like for Pittsburgh. So yeah, I think Buffalo wins covers the spread and wins. So I think they win by a touchdown or more, just like John. Excuse me. So now going on to the next noon game here, the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Cincinnati. Minnesota is favored by 3.5. John, this is the most exciting game, but who do you have here and why?
This was another one of those tough games, but I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals to cover. I do have some concerns about Joe Burrow coming back from injury, the offensive line, all these kind of things, but I think that they have the firepower offensively to put up a lot of points and keep up with Minnesota. I think that Minnesota has equal question marks on their defensive side of the ball with Danielle Hunter coming back from injury. Just all the concerns that they had last year they were dealing with that carries over into this year, just like the Bengals offense is dealing with. So yeah, I'm taking the Bengals. I think that they could win this game, but my gut would probably say Vikings win, but Bengals cover. Maybe Vikings win by like a field goal.
Gotcha. I'm going the opposite way. I'm picking Minnesota to cover and obviously win. Even though there are question marks with Danielle Hunter and his health and status, I mean, they made some good off defensive line additions. Added Sheldon Richardson and Dalvin Tomlinson on top. They get Michael Pierce back. And regardless, I mean, if you had concerns about Cincinnati's O-line, I mean, I'm still concerned about them, especially against this matchup. I don't think they'll be able to run the ball at all, really. And then, which I think will lend to Minnesota just peeling the ears back and just going after Joe Burrow, which I'm also worried about. Didn't get much preseason time. I mean, he only got 3 snaps, and they didn't even let him finish the drive. And then also, on the other side, I'm not, like John mentioned, I'm with this. I'm not too confident in Cincinnati's defense either, especially against Minnesota's, run game and pass game. I think that'll be a little more effective. So I think Minnesota will win and cover this one. Cincinnati, it does scare me because Cincinnati always tends to, obviously most teams do, but tend to play better at home. And I'm just scared Joe Burrow. They've just been playing coy with Joe Burrow, and he is going to go out there and ball out. But I just feel like that the fact that they didn't play much in preseason is a huge tell about his status and his health and whereabouts. And obviously, Jamar Chase. I mean, I don't know if he's solved his drops problem yet, but who knows how much time he'll have in the game as well. So going with the Minnesota Vikings here. But
for me, by the way, maybe I'm just going Cincinnati because they were sort of the bane of my existence last year. Because in games where I felt it was so obvious, like when they played the Browns, I literally watched them cover with like 20 seconds remaining in the game, kicking a field goal for no reason, just to just to cover.
Like
Like
you, man.
it really just Anyway, so maybe that's why
And then they had
going
like
Cincinnati.
Baltimore when they just got smoked by Baltimore, and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
well, what the heck? So, I mean, granted, not that Baltimore's a bad team, but it was just like you didn't know which Cincinnati you were gonna get, really.
right.
So, all right, so that's another one of our disagreements there. So next up is San Francisco, favored by 7.5, going to Detroit. I assume we both feel like San Francisco is going to win. Question is, do we think they'll cover? John, do you believe San Francisco will cover the spread?
Yeah, I know it's big, but the Lions, they kind of suck. And unfortunately for them, like the Niners, they just match up really well, when it comes to their strengths. TJ Hawkinson, he's a beast, but Fred Warner can absolutely cover tight ends. Their safeties can cover tight ends. So I just have concerns there. Their defensive line is strong, and DeAndre Swift, although he's supposed to be, have an increased workload this year, I don't know. I'm not sold on his ability to be able to do a whole lot against this 49ers team, who, as we know, has a really good front seven. Plus, it's Jared Goff finally outside of the Sean McVay system. Who knows what we're really going to see out of him? And then on the other side, it's Kyle Shanahan. I mean, it's just tough to bet against him when the Lions don't have really that notable of a defensive unit.
Yeah, I'm with you. Really, what Jeff Okuda is probably going to be their best corner, and he didn't have a great year last year. And then we all know Kyle Shanahan's going to bring some crazy stuff out, and then like John mentioned too, on the flip side, I guessing Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be the number one receiver for Detroit because they let go of Tyrell Williams, and I thought he was going to be the number one receiver, but they let him go, so I don't know. And it is Jared Goff, and we saw Jared Goff. I know it's his rookie year, but we already saw him without the Sean McVay system kind of lending help, and that was not a good year. And it's kind of in the same boat here, I feel like, with Detroit. So, yeah, I feel like San Francisco, they're going to want to get off to a fast start, especially since, last year they felt that, that should have been their year to get back to business, but injuries happened. So, yeah, I feel like San Francisco should not only win but cover as well. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm on my second Dr. Pepper from Whataburger. All right, so plain and simple, that one. Cut and dry. We'll move on to the next one here. Tennessee Titans at home, favored by 3.5 against the Arizona Cardinals. And our favorite coach, Cliff Kingsbury. John, are you going with Cliff in the gang, or are you going with Tennessee here to win and cover?
I'm going with Tennessee, and in large part, it's because I don't believe in the Cardinals' secondary's ability to stop Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, especially when you're going to have to divert so much of your attention towards Derrick Henry. I know they have J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, but those are edge guys. Their linebackers aren't necessarily renowned run stoppers because they do like to run sort of hybrid stuff with guys like Isaiah Simmons. And we don't know how much of a role he's necessarily going to have because he didn't play a ton last year. But, they just don't have the prototypical front seven that's built to stop the run. And with the Titans and their ability to just run it against pretty much any defensive front, I just can't see the Cardinals really being able to contest what they want to do on offense. And when Derrick Henry is able to do whatever he wants, that means they can control the pace of the game, keep the ball out of the opponent's hands, and that's going to free up Julio and A.J. Brown to make some things happen. And I think if you're a Titans fan, you got to be excited to see what those guys can do together on the field. So, yeah, I'm taking Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm with you taking Tennessee as well. Similar reasons. If I want to focus on the other side of the ball, I expect the Titans. I know their defense was disappointing last year, but I expect them to be better this year. Added Norris Jenkins, first round pick Caleb Farley as well, and the year for Jeffrey Simmons to get better. So, unless I am worried a little bit, maybe Cliff Kingsbury, and always he's like kind of on the hot seat and really brings out the creativity week one. But I think, especially against Mike Vrabel, I don't think he's going to respect that run game at all. Just focus on containing Kyler and be all over their concepts. So, sorry to our dear friend Panda Kyle Wells, but going Tennessee here, man. Sorry, I just want to be right. I think we both just want to be right. So we both have Tennessee to win and cover that 3.5-point spread. Going to the next game, which also could be a good one with that Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson. They are favored by 2.5 going to Indianapolis to face the Colts. Carson Wentz is on track to play Week 1. I'm not. I don't know the status exactly of Quentin Nelson off the top of my head. But regardless, at least they got Wentz. So, John, who do you have here to win and or cover?
This one was another tough one, especially as I looked deep into the rosters and the teams didn't lose a whole lot of pieces. I know we talked about the Colts a little bit ago, and I wasn't fully sure how their defensive unit was looking when it came to retaining their secondary, but it looks for the most part the exact same. And so that just, I don't know, it makes it a little bit tougher. But last year I told myself towards the end of our picks that I was going to be a little more risky, and I was just going to go with whatever my gut said first off. And that started to get me a little bit better when it came towards the end. And so my gut instantly just told me Seattle. Early season Russell Wilson, he's just a different beast. I think he's a lot more motivated and just ready to go early on, locked in. And then once teams sort of start to adjust to what Seattle does, that's when we start to see them slow down later. So I'm taking the early season Seattle Seahawks. Just DK Metcalf, I expect him to have a big game because although the Colts secondary is, pretty solid and their defense is good, I just still expect DK Metcalf to be better than, all those kind of guys. So Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, DK and Tyler Lockett do scare me. But what I'm hoping is DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye really just wreak havoc, and that's what I think will happen, wreak havoc on Russell Wilson and that offense just enough so that the Colts have a chance to stay in the game. I think they'll win. If not, it will be a very close game. I just, like I mentioned before, I'm really worried about Seattle's defense. Didn't do much addition-wise. Even lost, like I said, their starting cornerback, Shaquille Griffin, who, wasn't even, I wouldn't say he was one of the better ones, but he's still, a starting cornerback. And I know they'll get Jamal Adams fully healthy, something they didn't really have last year, but I'm just not fully confident in Seattle to at least cover that spread. So I'm going Indianapolis here, and because I really think Indy too. They may just I think they'll be able to run the ball a lot. I think they'll, especially if Russ and DK and Tyler Lockett get going early. I think Frank Reich's going to make point of emphasis to I guess the term sit on the ball, eat the clock, and just make this a low-scoring game, make that Seattle defense stop them, and I don't think they will. So going with Indianapolis, but I can easily see this one going the other way against me because, man, it's always scary to go against Russ. So that's who I'm going with there. Alrighty, going to the next game here. I think this will be a low-key fun game too. I know I kind of said that for a few of them. This one I mentioned it'll be fun. LA Chargers and Justin Herbert favored by 1.5 going to Washington to play the Washington football team. Surprise, surprise. John, who do you got here? You think you have the East Coast or the West Coast team here?
I went back and forth on this one. 1.5 point spreads are tough. But I think Washington's going to take this one. I think that their defense could have some success against the Chargers offense that's still trying to build some chemistry, I guess. New guys along the offensive line. Austin Eckler didn't get to play a whole lot last year. New offensive schemes. I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for the Chargers overall. To where Washington, I think it's they're ready, they're roaring to go. They're motivated. They want to come out and just hit some people. So I think that Chase Young, the whole Washington defense, they could have some success in this game. I actually think they win, not just cover. I think they can win this. I do think it'll be a little bit close because I expect the Chargers defense with healthy Joey Bosa, healthy Derwin James, some of these guys to have some success against Ryan Fitzpatrick. But overall, week 1 through 3 Fitzmagic, is just something to behold. So I'm not going to bet against him in the early games.
Yeah, I'm going Washington too to win and cover. Shout out to our friend Mitchell Matthew because it was a really tough one. Because Herbert is so good against the blitz and under pressure, and I do think Fitzpatrick will be fine on the other end. It's just tough because I also expect a fully healthy Chargers defense is always scary, and Brandon Staley, just was the DC of the number one defense over in at the other LA team, ironically enough. Granted, he doesn't have, exactly Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, but he has, Derwin James and Joey Bosa, like you mentioned. So still pretty good players to utilize, but I, I really can't get a feel for this game at all, just because, two very similar kind of teams, and both teams still have kind of similar question marks. Darn, that's my trash. I'm sorry. Always happened at that time. But I'm going Washington too. I just, at home, it's always tough for the West Coast team to go to the East Coast too on a noon game, because for them, their time clocks are 10 a.m. So typically typically they do have a slower start. So going Washington here. And actually, when we do the fantasy part, I do have a question in regards to this game, so we can go over that too. But going to the next game, this would be a fun one too, just because of the narrative. Carolina at home. They are favored by 5.5, hosting my boy Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. Revenge game for Sam Darnold as well, right off the bat. So, John, who do you have here to win and cover?
Taking the Carolina Panthers. Just a lot of question marks about just overall what's going to be happening in New York. Once again, early games, I tend to look to who's the more stable, sturdy team between the two, because when there's just sort of mystery, it's harder to feel good about a team that has new head coach, new quarterback, new receivers, new offensive linemen, just new stuff across the board. Where the Panthers, yes, they do have a new quarterback, but a lot of returning pieces, and I think that Christian McCaffrey being back for this game could be big, and I expect him to have a really good game against the Jets. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Panthers to win this one and cover.
I'm in the same boat. I mean, nothing against. I love Zach Wilson, but it's just undermanned. I feel like too. I'm not confident in the Jets' running game just because the running backs haven't been too impressive. Tevin Coleman's always been dealing with injury. Really hasn't been the same. Michael Carter hasn't really popped in the preseason. I think he's going to be second or third on the depth chart already. And then
now he's third.
And then we don't know the status of Jamison Crowder. So I mean, not that Elijah Moore. But it'll be Elijah Moore's first game. And then on the flip side, too, the Jets defense, like I think we alluded to in the preview, not very confident, especially since they lost, Carl Lawson and Jared David already. Cornerbacks, I don't know I'm not confident in their corners. I don't even know who really their corners are off the top of my head. So that says a lot. And, I think just the fact that, like John mentioned, Sam Darnold with Christian McCaffrey, with all these weapons, I think that Joe Judge and Matt Rule will definitely will scheme plays for for Sam Darnold to put him in good positions and help him get his revenge against the Jets, since they never really provided him with the support he needed. So going with Carolina as well to win and cover that 5.5 point spread along with John. And last, and some would say least, but not least, the last game of the noon slot here. Jacksonville Jaguars favored by 2.5, going to Houston. Kind of like the Atlanta-Philly game, a game where we both expect these two teams to be towards the bottom of the rankings. But they play each other twice. This is one of them. So, John, who do you have here and why?
In a battle of two bad teams, I'm just throwing a risky pick out here. Obviously, I think a lot of people are going to take Jacksonville, but I'm going to go Houston because I don't expect them to win a whole lot of games this year, but I think this is one of the more winnable ones. Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer just haven't had the best start in preseason. They did have some success against the Dallas Cowboys, but that was like a full half of football of the Jags starters versus Dallas's third stringers. I'm going to take Houston here. I have no logical reasoning as to why, except for it's two bad teams. It's to me, it's really a coin flip. I think a lot of people might just go Jacksonville because they know more names there, but I'm going to take Houston to pull out a scrappy win and cover.
I went Jacksonville just because I think talent-wise, I know they're not either team's great, but at least Jacksonville has more talent. I feel like Urban Meyer in the game too. I think he's going to definitely have something to prove because myself included, a lot of already people skeptical of the Urban Meyer regime as it started with him bringing in Tebow and how he made a quarterback competition with the number one overall pick in Gardner Minshew. So, I think he's going to want to come out firing, and he's going to get that team motivated. And on top of that, Houston, I mean, not much. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's solid quarterback, great backup, but I just really all he has is Brandon Cooks is all I'm confident. Don't really know who's going to be the running back. O line's okay, but not great. And then on defense, I mean, nothing really special on defense outside of Justin Reed. And I'm trying to think. No one else really that I would say would be a difference maker on defense. So I think Jacksonville should have an easy game offensively, and I think that they'll win and cover at Houston. So that is my pick. That's another one of our differences. So we'll see what happens there. Gonna pause real quick so we can restart the stream. Alrighty, so we are back, and now we're done with the noon games, and now we're going on to the afternoon games, or 3 p.m. here Central Time, whatever. Afternoon games here, and we start off with quite a doozy. Got a lot of good games here, but this is a rematch from last year's playoffs. Kansas City at Arrowhead, favored by 6.5 points, hosting the Cleveland Browns. John, who do you have here in this rematch?
I was tempted to go Cleveland because I really like the roster. They're really talented, but I'm going to stick with the Chiefs here. I know the playoff game was really close last year, but them being at home, it's the Chiefs. I think they're going to want to get off to a really strong start, especially with this new offensive line. I think they're going to make a statement and try and run the ball a lot just to get back in the groove of things, kind of like they did last year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he had his best game in week 1 in the whole season. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again. But I do think it's going to be a really good game. I think this could be a really fun one. But I'm going to take the Chiefs to win and cover.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs will win, and I know if my parents are watching out, they're going to be real upset about this. I mean, I did pick the Chiefs to win. I said so. I believe they will. But going with Cleveland to cover the spread, I think that they're gonna definitely want a little bit of revenge. They're gonna bring their best shot this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, and I think that they're better equipped to deal with them. And I think that they definitely believe that they can compete with them after what happened last year. I mean, they were a 4th down stop away. They had all the momentum from having a chance at beating them, and it just didn't happen. It was a great gutsy play call by Andy Reid. But and especially I worry that obviously it's still tough to match up and scheme against Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and Mahomes. That's why I think Kansas City will ultimately win. But I just feel like Cleveland a little better equipped to handle them this year. And then on the opposite side of the ball too, with Odell Beckham back, I feel like their offense will be a little bit better because they did get to a slow start in last year's playoff, I remember. So this is kind of like a gut call, but going Cleveland here to keep it close, but I expect Kansas City to win. I think Andy Reid will have a few, and that does scare me. The fact Andy Reid week 1 usually has a few tricks up his sleeve, a few extra plays that he's been working on all off season to screw over the defense, and the Browns are running that Seattle-ish scheme, so he'll have a general idea of what defenses they're going to run. So that does scare me, but I believe in Cleveland's talent will keep them, and just their drive for revenge will keep them close in this one. So that is that. So that's another disagreement there for us. I think we have one more after this one. But going on to the next game, this is also great game at New England and the Mac Jones era, week 1 of that. They are favored by 3.5, hosting, New England Light, you can want to call them, but the Miami Dolphins and Tua and Brian Flores. John, who do you have here in this battle of Belichick versus his disciple?
Honestly, I'm a little bit shocked that New England is the favorite here. I mean, it is at home. Belichick's record against young quarterbacks is absurd. So there's a lot of things that are going in New England's favor, in their favor. But I also think that with Mac Jones being a rookie quarterback, a lot of new additions, just a lot of change in New England. Versus a Miami team who looked really good last year. Even in games where Tua struggled, they had wins. So, yeah, I'm taking the Dolphins. I think they could win this game. I think they will win this game. I think it's going to be tough for Mac Jones to have to come up against Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, the defense that the Dolphins do have. And I think that with Brian Flores being a Belichick disciple, he does have some familiarity potentially with some of the more basic stuff that they might try to bring out for Mac Jones because he is a rookie quarterback. And I think on the offensive side of the ball for the Dolphins, I think this is going to be a proving moment for Tua. I think he's going to want to come out and try and really show that he is, what people believe him to be. Because last season there was just a lot of concerns, a lot of question marks, a lot of doubters, and I think that he's going to have a lot to prove in this game. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Dolphins.
By the way, I want we should get more credit for we were deemed Tua haters last year. We were just trying to be real with people, not that we wanted Tua to fail, but we just said temper your expectations, and I'm just
Right.
saying we both deserve a pat on the back. Regardless, I am going Miami as well. I don't think they'll win. I'm kind of throwing the needle here, but I think New England wins. But I just think this would be a close, defensive, ugly 2017 game. I'm not too confident in Miami having a lot of successful drives. I think they'll have a few, but especially with the receiving core, it's really just Jalen Waddle and probably going to be Devontae Parker. I think New England will be able to handle that. And then on the flip side, I'm not too worried about Mac Jones because I think it says a lot that they were so confident in him that they would just let Cam go, and that they were just rolling forward with Mac 100%. So, yeah, I think Miami covers, but I feel like New England wins. I don't feel great about this one, but let's see how it goes. But luckily, if I'm wrong, then John's wrong too. So we're in the same boat here. And I made my picks before John, so it's not like we're copying each other. It's only week one, so no need to play that kind of game spread pick wise. Not that we would, but yeah. So there's that game. That game I expect to do very well, but unfortunately, I will not be watching that game very closely, at least. Because the next game on our slate, my Green Bay Packers, favored by 4.5. Technically, New Orleans is the home team, but it's at Jacksonville, so I didn't include the at in our little spreadsheet, which is unfortunate for New Orleans. It always sucks when you get a home game taken away from you. But regardless, John, who you got, Jameis and the new New Orleans Saints, or you got my Packers here for this game?
Do you know technically it's supposed to be the home team for this game?
It was New Orleans. It was supposed to be
Okay.
in New Orleans at the Superdome, but unfortunately, because of the hurricane and such like that, that's why they relocated to Jacksonville.
Right. Okay. I don't know why I just blanked on that because you just said that too.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take Green Bay. I just, it's the Packers. I think they're a really good team. I don't think that there's any concerns really about anything on the Packers side except for Bakhtiari's not playing. But even then, I still expect Aaron Rodgers to be the machine that he is and to do what he does. And for New Orleans, it's, Jameis Winston back in the saddle, starting quarterback again. A lot of expectations for him. I think there could be a little added nervousness of, hey, you're known as the guy who throws a lot of interceptions. Don't throw more. And especially against a pretty good area with Jair out. Adrian Amos, I almost forgot his name. Darnell Savage. Some of the guys that they got over there, I think they have some ball hawks who could try to, get some takeaways. Plus, Michael Thomas isn't playing. I don't know who's going to be the receivers really for the Saints. I know Marquez Callaway has showed out in preseason, but that's preseason. So, I just think that this is an easy game for Green Bay to win, and it does suck that for the Saints they're not going to be at home, and yet it counts as a home game.
Yeah, if it wasn't the Superdome, it would be definitely a much tougher pick. I might pick New Orleans to cover, but because it's at Jacksonville, I think that I would hope that my Packers, put an emphasis on loading the box, stopping that good offensive line and Alvin Kamara, because I think that's what they will lean towards. And then I believe, like John just mentioned, I think our secondary could definitely handle the wide receiving core or whatever's left of the wide receiving core of New Orleans. I am scared of Sean Payton having a few creative concepts and plays that might get guys open because he's a very good offensive mastermind. But I was gonna go somewhere with that. Regardless, on the flip side, defensively, we don't know what's going to happen with Marsh and Lattimore. We're going to get regardless. I think Packers offense, especially Aaron Rodgers, they're going to come out wanting to make a good statement. Oh, and that's the point I was to make was that New Orleans always seems to come out at the beginning of the year slow. Remember last year they had a really ugly game against Tampa. I think the year before that, I believe, or maybe in the year before, 2 years before, when they lost to Fitzmagic, as when he was a Buck. Remember that? He just tore them apart week one. Yeah, I'm going with my Packers here. And I think because of everything going on in New Orleans, unfortunately, and they've been displaced, I think that'll factor into the New Orleans typical slow starts. So going with my Packers to win and cover here, along with John. So going on to the next game, almost done. This is the last game of the Sunday afternoon slate. The Denver Broncos favored by 3.5 at the New York Giants. John, who do you have here? You going with Teddy Bridgewater and the Broncos, or Daniel Jones and the Giants?
I'm taking the Broncos. I think they have the recipe for success to beat a team like the Giants, who have a really tough defense and a solid run game. I just think that Broncos defense with Bradley Chubb, Von Miller back, Justin Simmons at safety, the loaded cornerback room that they have, like they might have the best secondary in the league. And so it's gonna be a tough game for Jones. I don't expect the Giants offense to get off to a hot start. I know last year they didn't. They played the Steelers early on, and Saquon Barkley, I think, had like 6 yards, because there's only so much you can do when you're getting hit in the backfield every play. I don't expect it to be that bad, because the Broncos don't have the same level of interior defensive linemen that the Steelers do. But I still expect them to have, similar type success where they can bottle up the run and not allow Daniel Jones to really get much in the air. And then on the other side of the ball, I think that Teddy Bridgewater, he wins the turnover battle. And when you do that, especially against a guy like Daniel Jones, who might try to take some risks if things are not working, I think that you tend to win games. And I think that's really all they need to do, because they can pound the rock with their 2 running backs, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, who are both solid. Could have some success here. And then I think Jerry Jeudy is just going to have a monster game. I imagine Cortland Sutton's going to be guarded by James Bradbury, so it's going to be a tougher matchup for him on the outside. But Jerry Jeudy being mixed around outside in the slot, Noah Fant as well, the tight end. I think that both of those guys could have immense success over the middle against this Giants team, who doesn't have the greatest coverage safeties or linebackers.
So I went with the Giants here, but I do think Denver will win. I just think like the New England Miami game, it's gonna be a defensive struggle. Now it does scare me. What could make this blow this game apart for my pick is the Daniel Jones factor. If he makes one too many mistakes, like John just mentioned, I don't think Teddy's gonna give the Giants that same opportunity. However, I think this Giants defense is for real. I think they'll be able to slow down the run game for the most part, and they definitely have the corners to match up with Denver's wide receiving core, on top of the fact that I think that they'll know what to expect from Teddy Bridgewater. I think they'll try to force him to make a few plays that he otherwise wouldn't, force the ball downfield and such, and with one-on-one opportunities. But regardless, like I said, I think this is going to be like that wouldn't cover, but like a 16-13, 2017-ish type of game where it's just ugly, and we'll probably talk about it maybe with fantasy, but for the fantasy wise, I am like avoiding this game as much as possible, because I feel like this is just going to be one of those ugly ones. But yeah, I'm going with the Giants here to cover, but if I had to pick who was going to win, I would go with John with Denver. Obviously, John believes Denver can win and cover, so that is our last disagreement. Sorry to spoil the surprise there for that one. So now going on to the Sunday night game. The LA Rams at LA, favored by 7.5, hosting the Chicago Bears with Andy Dalton as a starting quarterback. John, do you think Andy Dalton and the Bears can pull off the upset here?
I almost went with Chicago, but I don't think so. I just worry about their offensive line. We saw them play the Rams last year. That game was really notable for me because Johnny Hecker punted it 5 straight times inside the 10-yard line, and that was like the greatest punter game I've ever seen in my life. And so, and just the they couldn't get anything going because they were just pinned deep. The Rams of Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they just pressed up and they didn't allow Chicago to really get anything going. And I think a very similar thing could happen. Tariq Cohen's not there. Tevin Jenkins is hurt, and so he's not going to be there. There's just Kyle Fuller's no longer a part of Chicago. So, yeah, I just think that the Rams, Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, similar to some of these other sort of high octane offenses like Kyle Shanahan, or even the Packers or the Matt LaFleur, or like you talked about, Andy Reid. I think these kind of guys, they just scheme up a lot of stuff over the offseason, and this is where they start to try and throw out some of their new plays with all their players that they got. And I think that out of all those sort of offensive guys, I think Sean McVay is probably the most likely to do it because he now has Matthew Stafford as his quarterback, and he hasn't had a guy of that skill level during his time in the NFL. So, yeah, I'm taking the Rams here. Like I said, I almost took Chicago, but I think that the special teams for the Rams, the defense for the Rams, the matchups that they can exploit, it's going to be tough for Chicago, especially with Allen Robinson basically being taken out of the game. If you look at the stats last year, I think he had like 4 catches for 30 yards on Jalen Ramsey. And when you don't have him, it's just going to be hard.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. Going LA Rams to win and cover. Not confident in the Bears' offensive line. Not really confident in the Bears' passing scheme. Like John just mentioned, Jalen Ramsey will probably be on Allen Robinson, so not going to do much, at least while the game's still in the balance. And on the flip side, I mean, I would say the Bears' secondary got worse, at least on paper. Maybe, maybe one of their guys stepped up in camp. I don't follow the Bears that closely. But regardless, I mean, it's always tough to guard Sean McVay's scheme on top of Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. And like you mentioned, I think he'll have some extra plays and just some more creative ways to get the ball downfield with now that he has Matthew Stafford. And I think he has more, I would assume he has more trust in Matthew Stafford than he does for Jared Goff. So yeah, I think the Rams win this thing by more than eight or more. But so yeah, I think this is definitely a statement game for the Rams. Let everyone know that Sean McVay is fully back. And, his offense will be unleashed.
Yeah, and I know that we're going to talk about fantasy later, but I'll say this to all the Allen Robinson owners because I am one of them. Do not start him in this week if you have other options because like we talked about, Jalen Ramsey shuts down receivers. Allen Robinson was one of the unfortunate guys last year. I think he had like 8 points, which if that's his ceiling against Jalen Ramsey, you're probably better off risking it with somebody else off your bench.
All right, so going on to the last one here, the Baltimore Ravens favored by 4.5 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Shoot, I forget who's at home. I think it's at Las Vegas. My apologies for that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Not that
this
really
is their first game in their new stadium with fans.
At the Death Star, which great name by the way for what they call it. So I'll change it up. I'll go first here for the last one. I'm going Baltimore. Sorry, Mike. Our good friend Mike. He's going to be in our DMs. But it's just that, like, I think it happened last year, happened the year before. Like, week one, they always have, everyone's full focus on stopping Lamar. And they have a few creative, pass plays to kind of show, like, Lamar, we can help out Lamar in the pass game. Now, granted, it doesn't last very long, typically. But I think, Sammy Watkins, I believe he'll be healthy. He's always good week one. And I assume Marquise Brown, they seem to incorporate a few plays for him towards the end of the last season. It does worry me. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins. I think they lost Justice Hill, too. So really, it's just Gus Edwards, who's a solid back, but not as much of a home run hitter as those guys.
They did just sign Le'Veon Bell, though.
Yeah, but Le'Veon's not Le'Veon. He's not that anymore. I think it'll take him a while to get used to. But regardless, on the flip side, still a solid defense. I think that, the front seven's still pretty good. And obviously, their secondary's one of the more elite secondaries. And that's what worries me is, the Raiders not... Hunter Renfrow is solid, but we don't know what we're going to get out of Henry Ruggs, especially week one. And obviously, I think Waller's great, but I think that would be a point of emphasis for the Ravens is to take away Waller, and I'm just not confident to, Raiders reshuffle their own line. So if they want to try to make this a battle of the trenches, I'm not entirely confident that they'll open the holes for Josh Jacobs so that he can make big plays. But I could be very wrong. We'll see. Seems like last year, every time Mike hit us in the DMs about us picking against his Raiders, he ended up being right. So, what about you, John? Are you ready? Are you gonna go against the Raiders and get your DMs blown up, or are you going with them?
I'm sorry, Mike, but I think the Ravens are actually going to win this pretty comfortably. I think it's going to be a 2-score game at least. I know that this is, new year, new season, a lot of additions, but last year the Raiders allowed the second most rushing touchdowns in the entire league. against a team that is a run first team like the Ravens, although they don't have J.K. Dobbins, they don't have Justice Hill, Gus Edwards. He still looked impressive in the limited amount of times that he did get on the field during his career so far. And then obviously the Lamar Jackson effect. The guy's just a beast. I think they're going to have success in the run game. And I absolutely think that could be a game where, Mark Andrews and some of the other pass catchers could, have a solid outing just because of the added emphasis the Raiders are going to place to stop the run. And then also on the other side, I agree with you. I think it's going to be hard for Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake to really establish anything, especially with guys like Rodney Hudson, who is no longer there. And we know that the Ravens are incredibly aggressive up front. And so I think that honestly, the Ravens they're going to say, Derek Carr, we're going to give you one-on-one coverage against Darren Waller and Henry Ruggs and all these guys. And we're going to try and make you beat us because we believe that if it just comes down to you in the passing game, we can win this. And so, yeah, I think they're going to take away the run game that the Raiders have. And although, maybe Darren Waller does have a solid outing, I don't think it's going to be enough for the Raiders to really keep this one relatively close. So, yeah, I'm taking the Ravens.
Yeah, the only thing I will say, like one reason why I have Waller in the league, I'm still playing him, is because the Ravens are so aggressive defensively. He probably will get a big play or two,
right?
Just because the Ravens are the best way they are. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to blitz and leave their guys on islands. It's kind of like how the Bucs were for the most part last year. Yep. That's their style, and they own straight from it. And hey, there's a reason that they've been pretty successful the past decade. It's because that's their identity. They like to be the aggressors. Typically, so
yeah, they're going to force the quarterback to make a play,
which is why they have trouble in Kansas City, because Mahomes can fade away from the pressure, let go, and then you can't man-to-man Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce for that long. So but different game, different time. So that is our week 1 picks. It'll be fun. We'll see. We won't have that many differences to start off the year, but I feel like this week, I think there'll probably be more as we go on. This week was a pretty straightforward week, and who knows, we'll probably be wrong a lot.